free to chat any questions you have, and then at the end we should have plenty of time to talk about NC Live or anything that was confusing, or if you have ideas for us, please do chat us and we'll tackle them at the end. All right, so you'll have a lot of fun today in the other sessions and hopefully in this session as well. But our goal for the next 20 minutes or so is really to reintroduce you or introduce you to NC Live. If you know NC Live, this might be more of a refresher, but that's okay. And then our second goal is to help you figure out how to keep connected with NC Live. I think days like today are really great in terms of getting you up to speed, but then time marches on, things happen, a year or two goes by, and you might sort of fall out of touch. So at the end of the presentation, we have many, many ways for you to stay connected with us so that you don't miss any important announcements. All right, so some basics. NC Live is a membership cooperative, which means that we're here to serve you, member libraries. We are hosted at NC State University, and we've been around for 24 years. We consist of 4 different communities, and those are the UNC system, the 4-year independent college and university system, the community college system, and then also the public libraries of North Carolina. So all told, we have 206, about to be 207, we have a new library coming, 207 libraries across the state. And we are a public-private partnership. So while a lot of our funding comes from the state legislature, the independent colleges pay membership dues every year to participate. So we are a mix of public and private money. All right, so I mentioned the library count, and you can see the breakdown here. So most of our members are actually public libraries. One thing that's unique about NC Live compared to other consortia around the country is that we offer the same content, the same software, and the same services to everybody. So this is really powerful from an equity perspective, because no matter where somebody lives in North Carolina, they could live in an urban community, they could live in a rural community. As long as they have a library card, they have access to NC Live, right? It's the same content for everybody. And that's really powerful when you think about, North Carolina, like most states, some areas are really well funded, other areas not so much. So, we're really proud of the fact that it doesn't matter where you live. At least when it comes to NC Live, you're going to have the same access as anybody else. So that's not true in all states. So it's something we ought to be proud of in our state. Our mission at NC Live is to help member libraries, so to help you all, better support education, enhance economic development, and improve the quality of life of everybody in the state. So that is a broad statement, but you can see it really does funnel down to the 3 things of education, economic development, quality of life. So whenever the NC Live Librarians Council, which is our governing body, or whenever, Devin and me and the rest of the group on the team, whenever we think about ideas or hear ideas from membership, we're always thinking through this lens, right? Does it support education? Would it enhance economic development? Does it improve the quality of life of folks in the state? And that's really kind of our filter, right? So if it doesn't do any of those things, probably not something that we should be doing. But I think as I talk through our services today, you'll see that, all of them probably check at least 2 of these boxes, if not all 3. All right, so here's the team. You've met 2/3 of us, or sorry, 1/3 of us today. I gotta get some more coffee. You can see the rest of the team. So I just like to show this slide since we're all in such a virtual world. So you might be emailing with us or chatting with us on the support desk. Anyway, these are the other folks, and we'll soon be posting for an administrative assistant. So I'm always pushing. If anybody knows anybody, let me know. All right, so Devin mentioned at the top, we'll talk about governance. And so the Librarians Council is really sort of our board of directors, if you will. And so they meet quarterly and really set the direction for NC Live. But we have lots of other committees, lots of other ways to participate in governance. So I'll briefly go through these 4 on the left. The TAC is the Training Advisory Committee, and they're really responsible for all things instruction. So, today's session is a great example of something that they would have, either put together or told us, hey, we need to do more training on these services. So set that up. So they're really guiding the priorities for the training function here at NC Live. So if you have an instruction background, if that's your passion, consider serving on the TAC and let us know if you're interested. The RAC, or the Resource Advisory Committee, they're really in charge of telling me what we should be buying, right? So every 3 years, NC Live purchases about $3.5 million worth of content, and it's the RAC that really tells us what to go buy. They do a lot of collection development work. So they'll do analysis of our current resources and how they're being used or not used. They'll look at things like accessibility. Does a resource meet accessibility guidelines? They'll sort of go shopping and look around for what's new. So sometimes new products pop in the market. They'll assess those and then either recommend that we pursue them or not. So anyway, I won't go on, but very important function. And if you do have a collection development background, let us know. That could be something that would fit for you, and you could serve on the RAC. The OPAC is sort of the trickiest acronym: Outreach, Promotions, and Partnerships. So the OPAC is really in charge of all things outreach, marketing, promotion, events. They do lots of work. I would say sort of their centerpiece every year is planning our annual conference. So every May we have an annual conference, and the OPAC is instrumental in figuring out, what's the theme this year, which keynote should we try to book. They review proposals, etc. So they do lots of other things, but I think the annual conference is a good sort of thing to think about. So if you're into that, if you do outreach, social media, marketing, etc. at your library, again, you might be a great fit for the OPAC. I feel like I'm doing a reverse Jeff Foxworthy, where it's like, if you like these things, you might be an OPAC person. Anyway, so the WAC is the last one, and that's the Website Advisory Committee. They advise us not only on the NC Live website, which usually gets refreshed every couple of years. We just finished a refresh in December. So if you haven't been to our website recently, please do check it out, and you can see what we've done with it. So they advise us on our website, but then they also advise us on our website service, which I'll talk about later. And that's a service we provide to libraries who want to use our sort of LibGuide-based website for their own library's website. So anyway, if you're into web design, I will say you don't have to be a coder, so you don't have to be like a hardcore, web design person. We just ask that you have a passion for great website design and that you have an interest in assessing great websites. All right, so that was a lot. All right, so the next several slides are really going to focus on what we offer at NC Live, and we always like to look at it from a patron's perspective. To me, it's sort of a healthy way to take a step back, since we're all librarians, sort of take a step back and ask, what is it like to be a patron at our library? What's it like to be a patron, trying to access resources online? And what are some barriers that you might face? And then what can we all do collectively as librarians to make it easier, right? Because it's not always easy to get from, I have an information need, to the information that we want. There's often several barriers to get there. So here's our patron. We've never named him or her, we don't know, but we really should someday. So this is our patron, and we sort of figure like most folks are overwhelmed with information, right? So they go online, they Google things, they might find what they need, but then they might find something that is subpar. They might find something that's just wrong and maybe intentionally wrong. So it might be like a fake news situation. And it can be really difficult for the average person to sort through all that, right? Something could look credible, but it's not. Or something that is credible is just so buried in the search results, they never get to it. So, really, they are kind of lost in space, right? And they have this sort of black hole effect of, I have this information need, I'm on the web, and I'm struggling, right? I'm not getting something that I could use. And then at libraries, here we are. This is our job, to sort through all the info and to collect the good stuff or the authoritative stuff. And so really, this is sort of the mess we're in, and we're trying to figure out, how can we get the patron from where they are having this information need to the authoritative information that we provide and we spend, billions of dollars on. So what can we do to make that process smoother? So let me talk about the barriers quickly, and then I'll talk about some of the solutions that we offer. So the first challenge for most information seekers is that they're not starting their search on a library's website. And actually, as librarians, we are probably not starting our search there, right? We need to know something, or we need some information about a topic. Most of us, the vast majority, will start on Google, right? We'll start there. Maybe we get what we want, maybe we don't, but that's our starting point. And so really the first big barrier is, how do we get people to think about the library, right, when they have an information need? Because that's not the first thing on most people's mind. So how do we get them to try a library? Let's be optimistic, right? Let's say, well, maybe they didn't like what they found on the web and they finally made it to their local library. So now they're here, right? They're on your library's website. What's that experience like? What's it like on a mobile device? Is it intuitive? Are the search features, on par with Amazon or Facebook or YouTube, or is it something else, right? And so the unfortunate thing is that, on the web, the best experience you've ever had becomes your expectation for all your experiences. So, if you can go to Google, misspell every word in your search string and still get a good result, why can't every site do that, right? So then we start to ask, well, what's that experience like on our library's website? What's that experience like in our search catalog? And unfortunately, we're really competing with some very well-funded, very intuitive search machines. So anyway, that's a real challenge. And if your library's website isn't sort of on par with some of those websites, the patron may just go away. They may say, what's a Boolean operator? I'm scared. And then they're gone and we've lost them. And the shame is they've never made it to the content that might really be relevant to what they need. So we don't want to lose them at that stage. The next barrier, assuming they can navigate the website, is, at some point they're gonna have to log in, they're gonna have to, type in their credentials. We've all been in a situation where, we're trying to log into something online and it doesn't work. I would say most people have a very short fuse. And so if it doesn't work the first time, if the forgot password link doesn't immediately email you or text you, most people are just going to move on, right? We have very short attention spans. So if we make access through authentication hard, that's another barrier potentially for the patron, right? They get frustrated, they go back to Google. They leave us never having, seen what we potentially could offer. So again, we don't want to lose them at that stage either. Finally, if they log in, maybe they're poking around our library catalog. What's that experience like, right? I already tipped my hand with the Boolean operators, but, folks are used to searching Google and they're used to, sort of natural language, misspelled words, somehow still getting relevant results. It's a really high bar to be that intuitive, and, no library catalog is that intuitive, right? So we're all struggling to at least get close enough to that so that our patrons aren't disappointed. But again, we're competing with some really, really well-funded search engines. And then finally, if they sort of navigate all those barriers, they might be reading the article, they might be, opening the ebook or listening to the audiobook or looking at the digitized newspaper. So that's where we want them, right? They have an information need. We want to get them to the content that's going to help them. But as you can see, any one of these barriers could prevent them from getting to it. And so this is how NC Live has really framed the last 5 or 6 years. What can we do besides providing content? What can we do to make this journey easier for the patron? So let's talk about that. So I'm going to start with content because I think that's what we have done the longest at NC Live, and it's pretty impressive when you think about the size of the collection. So let's start there and we'll kind of work our way out. So right now, at present, the collection at NC Live consists of 1.6 billion things, which is an impressive number. And by things, I mean full text articles, streaming videos, digitized newspapers, ebooks, test prep materials, language learning lessons, the list goes on. So 1.6 billion, which is really impressive. And again, I just want to encourage you all to share that with folks who, may look at the physical library and say, oh, well, our library is kind of on the small side, or, our library doesn't have the latest whatever. Just remember, as long as you have a library card anywhere in the state, you have access to NC Live, and that's an additional, 1.6 billion things in addition to whatever you have locally. So feel free to use this whenever you want to brag about what your library can offer. I mentioned that we spend about $3.5 million on content. That spending power is really multiplied because we're negotiating as a state. So when we negotiate with vendors, we're negotiating on behalf of over 200 libraries. So we get really good deals, right? We get deals that would just be impossible to get in other sort of buying services. So we spend about $3.5 million, and in our current cycle, that gets us about $47.8 million in content. And that number comes from the vendors. So they say, if we sold this product to all 200 plus libraries individually, this would be the sticker price. So as you can see, this is really a demonstration in, how do you leverage cooperative collection development to get, more than you could ever afford individually. And so that's another really powerful number when folks sort of ask, well, what does NC Live do? Or, what's the point of negotiating as a block? This is the point. We can get so much more for our money. The resource cycle, I'll probably just breeze over this. I mentioned the RAC is really the Resource Advisory Committee is the group that handles the work here. And it takes about 1.5 years to do this. So it is every 3 years, but the actual cycle is about 1.5 years. And then even in between that time period, we're doing, the RAC is doing a lot of analysis and monitoring usage. So it is pretty much a full-time job for the folks on the RAC. Our current resource cycle began January 1st, 2021. So we just passed the 12-month or 13-month mark in our new cycle. And the next one will be beginning in January 2024. Homegrown, I wanted to call out only because it is unique from the rest of our collections in that this is funded through really donations from libraries. So every year we ask you all if you want to donate to the Homegrown collection. It's like a fundraiser. We put that money together and we purchase ebooks that are published by North Carolina publishers. So, UNC Press, Duke University Press, Algonquin, which is sort of owned by a New York firm, but that's traditionally a North Carolina publishing house. And there are probably like 3 or 4 more that I'm not remembering off the top of my head. So it's a nice mix of academic titles and then, fiction and nonfiction and children's books. So anyway, the Homegrown collection is also unique in that these are books that we own. So they're never going to disappear from the collection. They're not rentals. And the other distinguishing factor is that they're unlimited simultaneous use. So say, for example, the Mountain Sing, if, you had a group that wanted to use this, if you wanted to use this in course reserves in an academic setting, you could put this on reserve, include the link, and 30 students could be reading it at the same time. Or if this was part of a book club at a public library, 3,000 people could be reading it. There's no limit on the number of simultaneous uses. So if you do find titles in Homegrown that you like, we do encourage you to use them that way. Usage is not an issue. So they're not going to disappear, and you can use them simultaneously as much as you want. So do check that out. And every year, because of the fundraiser, it grows, right? So our collection continues to get bigger. All right, so that was content. So let's I'll go a little more quickly through the rest here. I mentioned library catalogs, and in a live setting, I always ask folks, how many of you love your library catalog? And like one hand goes up. So library catalogs are really not intuitive to a regular person. To a librarian, we can handle it, but normal people can often struggle. So we decided we should do something about that. And we licensed a discovery service, which is not, I don't want to oversell it. It's not Google, but it's a lot more Google-like than a traditional library catalog. It supports natural language searching. It pulls together not just NC Live content, but your own content, whether that be, your print collection, your AV materials, your electronic content. It'll pull all of that into the same data set. so that when someone goes to your website and they type in, your search, your discovery service, they're going to see results no matter what the format type, no matter if we bought them or you bought them. It's all in the pot, which is what users expect because of Google. So we license that on your behalf. You don't have to pay for it. And we have many, many libraries using the Summon, ProQuest Summon discovery service. If that intrigues you and you're not using it, let us know, and we can point you in the right direction into setting it up. All right, proxy. So the other barrier that I talked about quite a bit was authentication. And again, if that's a painful process of trying to log in and get into your library's resources, we could potentially lose the patron. So similarly to Summon, our discovery service, we went ahead and licensed EZProxy from OCLC. And it does several things, but the main thing that EZProxy does is it allows your patron to log in once using whatever credentials they're used to using. So it could be their library card, single sign-on, whatever they normally do. And then once they do that, the first time they're logged in for the entirety of their session. So they might log in, look at an ebook, then they might toggle over to a Gale article, then they might go to ProQuest or to EBSCO, Films on Demand. They can do all of that without having to log in a second time or a third time. Just log in once, you're in, you're good. You can bounce around to all your library's resources. So it's kind of a behind the scenes service, but I think it does help meet the expectations that most patrons have. So I mentioned the library website service quickly. This was another area where we thought, we can't be the web designer for 200 libraries, right? We don't have that capacity. But we wanted to come up with a scalable way to offer a library a website service that they could manage. And so we basically hired a designer to use LibGuides and customize a template for a library's website. And we also, on the back end, wanted it to be configurable by anybody, meaning you don't have to know anything about web design or coding or any of that stuff to manage your own website. So we did it. We accomplished it. We should celebrate that. And we've got about 25 libraries using this service as their library's website. So we do charge a nominal fee. It's like $300 one-time fee, and that's forever. And we do update it probably once every, I would say, 18 months to 24 months as new features come out. I'll show you some real-life examples here. This is the template. You can see this is basically what it would look like sort of out of the box, and then you can customize it from here. So you can see lots of white space. This meets accessibility standards for things like a screen reader, etc. It's easy to update in the background without having to know anything about coding. And yeah, and it's pretty clean in terms of the aesthetic. And so here's a real life example. This is Surrey Community College. It's sort of a before and after shot. On the left, that was their website prior to adopting our service. And then on the right was, it's a screen cap, a couple years old now. So I should probably get a new one. But anyway, you can see what they've done with the template that I showed you just a moment ago. So it is pretty highly customizable. And again, but it's something that you can do without a web designer on staff. So if that intrigues you, again, just let us know and we'll help you get started. Okay, and the last thing that I want to talk about is search engine marketing. This is really an effort we're doing here at NC Live to try to address that very first dilemma of how do we get people to think about the library when they have an information need. And so, excuse me. So what we're doing is we're using Google Ad Grants, which is basically a fund of about $10,000 a month that is available to not-for-profits in the form of credits. So we take the credits that Google gives us, and then we've created advertisements. So if someone goes to Google in North Carolina and they type in, North Carolina ancestry, for example, they might see an ad at the top of their Google results that says, Heritage Quest via NC Live, click here or something. They would click on that, and then they would go to an NC Live page where they can either log in if they have a library card and then now they're in Heritage Quest, or they could sign up for a 10-day pass, in which case we'll give them immediate access, but only for 10 days. And then at that point, we encourage them to go to their local library and sign up for a card. So this is really that really high level challenge of how do we get people to think of us, whether on Google. Our solution was be on Google, right? That's sort of, it seems obvious, but I think the ad grants have been a really interesting way to get to the top of the list. So our goals are really to meet information seekers where they are, in this case, Google, connect them with library content, and then if they're not already a library patron, we want to encourage them to sign up for a card so they become a library patron. So I mentioned an ad. This is an ad that on the left that you might see if someone were typing in search terms related to North Carolina history research. And then you can see, in this case, it's going to link them to the historic newspaper collection. And you can see those two options. Either if you have a library card, now's your time to log in and now you have access. Or on the right, if you don't, go ahead and sign up for a 10-day pass. But either way, we're giving folks, we're taking them from Google, bringing them to a library and a library's content, and encouraging them to either use their library card or sign up for one. All right, I know I'm a little short on time, so I might jump ahead. So I just want to say that today is an example of some of the training that we're offering, but there is a lot more. So I know I'm bouncing all over the place. We do have more workshops like today and webinars. We have on-demand learning. So if you just want like a 5-minute tutorial on Heritage Quest, we have that. So please go to our training page and you'll find all the various ways that you can learn about NC Lives and NC Live resources. All right, and lastly, he says breathlessly. All right, lastly, so please do stay in touch with us. We try to be active on social media. You can follow us on your platform of choice. If you're more old school, you can sign up for a listserv. So you can go to our website and then go to the library listserv link and sign up for as many or as few as you want. And of course, if you ever have a question, or if you're having any sort of difficulty with NC Live services, go ahead and email, call us. We have a chat link now on our webpage. Yeah, let us know. We're happy to help you if you're ever stuck. All right.